It's a good day to brew, baby. What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Millsy, hometown commander, back for another episode of Millsy Brews, the show where I brew my version 1.0 deck list for the commander in front of us on my quest to brew the magic world. As always, that deck list is going to be down in the description for you below. As well as I'd really appreciate it if you can interact with the video, like, comment, subscribe, consider becoming a member of the channel, get all the videos early, as well as let me know how the new mic and video looks to you. Wanted to upgrade, make the videos better, and I'd love to get your feedback for it. But today, we are updating my earlier brew for Jolrael, Voice of Zhalfir. She is a 4-mana Simic 3/3 human druid. It's the beginning of combat on your turn. Up to one land you control becomes an XX green bird creature with flying and haste until end of turn, where X is the number of cards in your hand. It's still a land, and whenever a land creature you control does combat damage to a player, draw a card. Jolrael was a commander that interested me back in March of the Machine, the Aftermath, mainly because I think it's a fun way to care about landfall or about lands, right? Instead of just being all dump as many lands as you can on the battlefield, get all landfall triggers. It's interesting to care about land creatures specifically, and I think Jolrael does a really good job at making it worth it because you are making an XX with flying, where X is the number of cards in your hand. We're in great colors to just draw as many cards as we want to through different abilities, so we can make sure our hand is stocked up. And not only that, but when a creature deals damage to a player in combat, we draw cards. We're refilling our hand. There's a lot of ways in our colors to make sure we have no maximum hand size. There's a lot of ways to pay off drawing cards, and we're still going to care about landfall, just not as much as maybe a traditional landfall deck. I think it's interesting. I think there's some new cards that have made Jolrael even better, and so I thought it'd be fun to go back, pick a commander that probably not too many people have played with or used, and give it a spotlight. As far as land creatures go, there's a lot of ways to approach this, but I think there's some really fun ones. Invasion of Zendikar is a ramp spell that's well used these days because it's a battle, which is relevant for some other cards, but when it comes in, we get 2 basic lands, put on a battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. And then when we defeat the battle, we get to turn it into Awakened Skyclave, a 4/4 on the back that could tap for mana of any color, but is a land in addition to its other types. So it's a creature land, right? Allowing us to use that for Jolrael's effect. Nissa allows us to scry 2 on her +2/0, lets us look at the top card. If it's a land or a creature with mana value less than the number of loyalty counters on Nissa, we can put that card from our hand on the battlefield. And then from -6, we can untap up to 2 target lands we control. They each become 5/5s with flying and haste, and they're still lands. Here's a great way to get a couple of cards to draw off Jolrael in one turn. Yes, it is a -6, so we're going to have to level this up a little bit. We're not going to really be able to do it every turn. But I think it's important to have something like this we could do if need be. We could also do this the turn Nissa comes down if we pay 8 mana. So there is an option, right, to get that perspective ability there. Now, there are other Nissas that do this on their pluses, right? We have Nissa Vital Force, who does this on our +1. A land becomes a 5/5 with haste. It's still a land. No, it doesn't have flying, but hey, it's still got that. So that is nice there. Nissa Vital Force can also draws cards when land comes in with her emblem or return something to her hand. And the other thing to remember that with this ability is we could still make the land that we turned into a creature with another ability into that land, into that ability with Jolrael. So there is that option to make that 5/5 into an XX, where X is the number of cards in our hand and flying in the air if we wanted to. Makes sense not to, I think, most of the time, but it is an option. Nissa, who shakes the world, can untap our lands and turn them into 3/3 elementals. And then allows them to be able to attack. They have vigilance and then still tap for mana. So I kind of like this ability to turn our lands right into creatures and allow us to get potentially more chances for Jolrael to draw through our deck. Ashaya is going to turn all of our non-token creatures into forest lands, basically turning our entire board into land creatures, which is really nice because then we can get a lot of damage on everything hitting. We also get the upside of all of them being land permanents, meaning that they will get around certain pieces of removal, like, let's say, Abrupt Decay or Anguished Unmaking, things that care about the permanent being non-lands. It will start to get around things like that, Cyclonic Rift, So it is an upside, and then Ashaya gets bigger for each land we control. Blossoming Tortoise gives all of our land creatures +1/+1, makes the abilities of land cost a little bit less. We do have some lands we're going to talk about a little bit later that can animate themselves. And when it comes in or attacks, we get to mill 3 and return a land from our graveyard back to the battlefield tapped. Embodiment of Insight says that all land creatures we control have vigilance. This is a nice ability because then we can use those lands to tap for mana after we're done attacking. And it says whenever a land comes in, we can have a land we control become a 3/3 elemental and still end a turn with haste. So it's nice that it gets haste because it means the land that literally just came in can become that 3/3 with haste. That is a nice ability, right? Fakun Green Shell says that whenever we have 10 or more lands, creatures we control get +2/+2. And whenever it or another creature with power toughness greater than its power comes in, we can look at the top card. If it's a land, we can put on the battlefield tap. That's not going to happen all too often in this deck specifically. I think what we really care about is that +2/+2 once we hit 10 or more lands. I think I finally found a deck. I mean, I think Jody's a fine commander on its own, but I think I found a deck where Jody really makes sense from the Modern Horizons 3 Omo deck. When it enters the battlefield, we create a 1/1 Forest Dryad land token for each time you've cast your commander from the command zone this game. So hopefully at least one. It says, beginning of combat, land creatures get +X/+X, where X is Jody's power. So here's a way to just buff all your land creatures, and we might get 1 or 2 of them, depending on how many times Jolrael's come out of the command zone. Tadiova gaining us a life and drawing card. I'm not sure why it's under this section. I think I put the wrong card there, so we'll skip over that for now. Tadiova should be in the landfall section. Well, yeah, it draws you cards whenever a land comes in. I still feel like that's in the wrong section, so we'll cover that later. And then Waker the Wilds. We can pay X in double green to put X counters on a land we control. It becomes an elemental with haste, and it's still a land. That does not say until end of turn, you're just turning your lands into creatures, which is great, of course, with Jolrael. Awaken the Woods, making X 1/1 Forest Dryad land creature tokens. So they are creatures, but they're also lands. So, of course, the turn they come in, they can't be tapped, but on later turns they can. And here's a way to go wide and potentially draw a ton of cards with Jolrael if they can get in for damage. Sylvan Awaken, turning all of our lands into 2/2s with Reach, Indestructible, and Haste. So not a bad way to do it. It doesn't untap all of our lands, so that is something to pay attention to. But I think with enough lands on board, Sylvan Awakening can potentially draw us a ton of cards with Jolrael's ability. Awakening of Vitu-Ghazi for 5 mana turns a land into a 9/9. That's pretty cool. It doesn't get hate, it doesn't get trample, but it's still a fun idea to turn a land into a big Vitu-Ghazi and have that as a threat that our opponents have to deal with. Natural Affinity can turn all of our lands into 2/2s, so that's pretty cool for the purposes of Jolrael's draw ability. Vengeance Earth gets to turn a target creature or land into a 4/4 elemental creature with haste, but it has to be blocked to Fable, so a cheeky way to get around certain things, maybe if an opponent only has one blocker. And then Staff of Titania gives a creature +X/+X, where X is number forest we control, and every time it attacks, you make a 1/1 forest land creature token. So not bad, a way to grow, right, those amount of land creatures we have. Genju of the Cedars and of the Falls are auras that have to attach to their specific type of land, but for 2 mana, the land can become a creature until end of turn, and that's pretty cool. And then when the land that they're both attached to enters the graveyard, you can return it back to your hand. So there's a way to keep one of our creatures potentially always turning into a creature if we wanted to. Crawling Barrens for 4 mana can put 2 counters on itself and then become a creature until end of turn. Is a great recurable way to make it a creature and grow it, right, over the course of a game, which I feel like is important. Fairy Conclave for 2 mana can become a fairy with flying, so that's pretty cool. Give it some evasion, potentially make it easier to get in for damage. Hall of the Storm Giants and Lair of the Hydra, both from AFR creature lands that can activate their abilities and turn into a creature. Hall of Storm Giants turns into a big giant with Ward 3, and Lair of the Hydra can turn into a Hydra for as much mana as we want it to. I like that a ton because Lair of the Hydra specifically gives some flexibility and allows it to both of them still be used for mana, but also, can become creatures later in the game when we have a ton of mana. Lumbering Falls and Restless Vinestalk both can become creatures with their own abilities. Lumbering Falls becomes a 3/3 elemental. And Restless Vinestalk becomes a 5/5 plant with trample. And then Vinestalk gives one other target creature a base power plus 3/3 till end of turn. It doesn't say you control, so you could potentially hurt an opponent's creature, right? That's going to block. But again, here's great ways to turn lands into creatures with their own abilities. And then Treetop Village becoming a 3/3 ape. Again, the point is here are lands that have activated abilities that turn them in to land creatures. Well, we do want to draw, right? I mean, at the end of the day, that's what Jolrael's other ability does, is draw us cards. And there's a lot of ways we can look at this. We have things like Enduring Curiosity, which gives us more ability to draw cards when deal damage to other people. This is great because then any of our creatures can draw us cards when they deal damage. We'll combine the old Jolrael and get a cat every time we draw our second card each turn. And then for 6 mana, we can turn all of our creature into XXs, where X is the number of cards in your hand. This pairs really well with Jolrael because now all of those lands that we made into creatures, or all of our little creatures, are now getting big. And this is a tough combination for our opponents to deal with. I get to play Teferi, Temporal Pilgrim, a Planeswalker I really enjoy. Whenever you draw a card, you put a loyalty counter on it. And when the -2 can make spirits that grow every time you draw a card. Again, just a great kind of value engine in itself, and feels great kind of to exist alongside what we're already trying to do. Bidneth also to draw more off combat damage. I'm going to seize if we draw a card, you put a counter on it. You can remove 8 counters from it to make an 8/8 blue Kraken creature token. A great way to pay off drawing all of these cards, hopefully, and making sure that we can get a fun board state. On the trail, whenever we draw our second card each turn, we can put a land from our hand on the battlefield tap. So a way to ramp, right? Every turn is we're going to be hopefully drawing a ton of cards. Eidetic Memory feels pretty fun. When it comes in, we draw a card. We have no maximum hand size, so another version of that in our deck. In the beginning of combat on our turn, if we've drawn more than one card this turn, we can put X +1/+1 counters on target creature you control, where X is the number of cards you've drawn -1. So a way to spread some counters around, make other creatures a threat rather than just these lands that we're animating. Same thing with Wizard class, 1 blue mana to have no maximum hand size. Draw 2 and it hits level 2. And then level 3, if we get all the way up, whenever you draw a card, put a counter on a creature you control. This is going to pair really well with some of the landfall abilities we're about to talk about. Some of these landfall abilities that can put counters on creatures and just make our creatures bigger as well. Ancient Green Morton, whenever a land coming in would cause an ability of a permanent we control to trigger, it goes off an additional time. This is great for effects like Tadiova, which we accidentally saw before, but we'll see on the next slide. Bristly Bill's probably one of my favorite landfall triggers that's been printed recently, spreading out counters whenever lands come in. And then for 5 mana, you can double the amount of counters on each creature you control. But I like Bristly Bill because you can start growing your board every time a land comes in, and we already want the lands to come in anyway because we want to animate them and do other things. Springheart and Antuco, pick a non-legendary creature and bestow it on it. And then anytime a land comes in, you can pay 1 and a green and make a copy of it, which is pretty great. If we didn't make a copy, we just get a 1/1 insect. But hey, it feels pretty good to potentially make copies of some really key things like Embodiment of Insight or other creatures in the deck. Not bad to even pick the Green Ward and you could start getting lands back out of your graveyard, or double, get another trigger. Teddy over there to gain a life and draw a card, right? Every time a land comes in feels really good. So we're refilling our hand for the purposes of Jolrael. A Retreat to Kizgandu and Roaring Earth can both spread more counters whenever lands come in. Kizgandu can also gain us 2 life, which isn't bad either if we have enough lands coming in. But I've said it before, I'll say it on the show, and I'll say it again. No deck's ever complete. Even though I updated this one, I think there's still a lot of questions, which is, are we doing enough? Is there enough ways to make lands into creatures? That's where Rude Awakening and Kamal's Will come in. Both of them can turn all of our lands into creatures. Rude Awakening can make them 2/2s. Kamal's Will can make them 1/1s. So there's still option to bring in more ways to do this. The thing I like about Rude Awakening is that for 8 mana, you can untap all lands you control and turn them into 2/2s. So, if lands came in this turn, you can untap them, or if you had to pay other spells before it, you could do it that way. But, it's just one of those things where, do we have enough of those abilities? Do we need more of them? And then Mordenkainen is just a Planeswalker I've always loved when it comes to drawing cards. A +2 can draw 2 and put a card from your hand on the bottom of your library. The -2 makes a dog whose power deficits are equal to twice the number of cards in your hand. I feel like this pays really well with Jolrael, who already wants to have a bunch of cards in your hand. And then the -10 just allows you to exchange your hand in your library and then shuffle, and then you may just have a massive hand, right? I think Mordenkainen plays really well with Jolrael. I couldn't quite decide what to cut for it. It was probably the one of these 3 cards that I really wanted to bring in. I just couldn't decide. I got to this point where I really didn't know what to do, and so I shipped the deck, right? I said, I'm done. But it was one of those things where I really wanted to bring Mordenkainen back. Let's get into our playtest. Keeping a 3-lander with Growth Spiral, Natural Affinity, Tadiova, Steward of the Tides, which I think was supposed to be in the spot for the other one. Now that I think about it, land creatures you control have flying, and then whenever a land comes in If we control 7 or more lands, up to 1 land becomes a 3/3 elemental with haste. I think this is what was supposed to be in the spot of that other Tadiova. I just didn't realize it. And then Waker of the Wilds. Not a bad start. We got enough lands to get up to Jolrael. I think we have enough to get moving, and there's the Tadiova. So we'll put Lumbering Falls in tapped. We'll try to make our way up. We see Cactus Preserve, a land that comes in tapped. And for 3, it become an XX, where X is the greatest mana value among your commanders, which is 4, right, for Jolrael, but it's still a land. So not bad. We have a couple options. We could try to Growth Spiral this turn. Play the Yamamaya and just maybe pass and Growth Spiral on somebody else's turn. I think we just draw, draw and I guess put the Preserve down since there's nothing we could do with it. Just to ramp a little bit, get the party going. Come here for turn 3. Does Jolrael make the most sense? I think Jolrael makes the most sense. Get that started. Up to 1 target land neutral becomes an XX, but doesn't untap since we used all of our mana. I mean, there's a little we can do there, but that's okay. Next turn, we could start doing that. Ooh, Uro is kind of fun. I think we really want to keep putting value on the board so that on future turns we can really get good value with it. I think a land would have been nice, but that's a-okay. I think I kind of like the idea of Uroing. Leave a land up so that way Jolrael can still, do it for one of them. Gain 3 life and draw. We can put a land from our hand on the benefit, which we didn't get one, but that's okay. We've got 7 in hand, so this land's going to become a 7/7. It's going to hit for sure being in the air, and that'll allow us to draw. And again, not a land, but that's okay. I think there's still, a lot of things we can do. I kind of like keeping up this. Well, I kind of like keeping that rolling regrowth so we can make sure we start getting some more lands down. The question becomes, what do we cut? Blossoming Tortoise feels good. So we have a couple lands that have activated abilities. Something like the Kazan feels good with Bristly Bill. Tadua feels like a good engine. So does this one. I really don't know what to cut. I guess I'll go with this Teddy, but it kind of feels weird. I don't have maximum hand size, so I kind of have to cut something. We'll go back for turn 5. We see the Crawling Barrens. Okay, so there's a way to get some more party going. I kind of want to play something and reanimate the land again. Rolling Regrowth does bring them in tapped. So here's my thought. If I go to combat, make this island into a creature and attack, right? I draw a card on the damage. I have yet to play a land, right? My thought was Roiling Regrowth this away for a forest and an island. And just get like Crawling Barrens in, just so we have more access to more mana next turn. I still wanted to get the land to attack and get the card, which I guess we did either way. Still 7 damage in the air is brutal, right? That's something our opponents are going to have to get Jolrael off the battlefield to not deal with, right? We see the other Jolrael, so we can start getting some more creatures in. 6, so ideally we don't want to spend too much more. Could be. I think we still want to target getting that land out every turn and getting it attacking. I like the idea of Jolrael. I guess we'll go Bristly Bill. Play the land. We'll put a counter on Jolrael, I guess, just to get it get our powers matching up here. We've still got that one. Still got at least one land that we can animate with Jolrael. Animate it, attack, it's going to deal damage. Drawing us a card, that's going to make us the cat, right, off of Jolrael. Okay, and then I think this is, again, it's working its way. I think we're kind of getting our legs underneath us on what potential do here. We'll go one more turn. Okay, Jody's interesting. I like the Roaring Earth, but I don't really have any way to get a land drop. Right, Jolrael could turn all of our creatures into 7/7s, which wouldn't be bad either. I could just Natural Affinity and turn all of our creatures into lands, right? And take a big attack this turn if I wanted to. So there's a lot of options. Could potentially draw me a few cards, get into a few lands. I think this is one of those awkward situations where you're not entirely sure what to do. I think Geode makes sense. I could go Roaring Earth and then Geode. Geode's going to come in and make me that Forest Dryad. So landfall, landfall. Counter here, I'm thinking. And then beginning of combat, land creatures get +6/+6 where X is Geode's power. So we'll do the Jolrael trigger first, right? Turning this into a land. Then all my land creatures get, +3/+3. So it's now a, what, 8/8 in the air? Have it take a big attack in the air, draw a card, make another cat, bring that land in off of my regular land up for turn. Counter. I guess. And I think now we're in just good shape. Should be able to, and maybe animate Crawling Barrens and, animate a land with Jolrael. I think we're kind of in a good spot here where we're getting the party going as far as land creatures go. So let's go into playtest 2. I think we've kind of gotten a good board state there, or a small rational understanding of what we're looking for. So playtest 2, keeping a 4-lander with the new Zimone, which can make us that Primo token, Blossoming Tortoise, and Bonnie Paul, a way to get a land onto the battlefield every turn. And we get that Bow token, which isn't bad to start having some threat to our opponents. Oh, we draw AC, a great card to see off the top, and one will happily welcome in here in the turn or two. We see Ominous Seas that we'll happily get down, so we can get that party started. So turn 3, we got 1 counter on it. Hall's going to come in tap. So I guess we'll go, I'm thinking Reliquary Tower, Zimone, right? Beginning our end step, we do have 3 lands, so we're going to make Primo. Put 3 counters on it. So now Primo can potentially be a threat in the future, right, as we get more and more lands with Zimone. The next turn, we'll put another counter on Ominous Seas. Like I said, unfortunately, both of these lands are going to come in tapped no matter what, right? But I could pay something for 3 mana. I just don't have the 3 mana to play anything. That will make another Primo because we have 3 lands, but that is what it is. Again, it's unfortunate to not hit something there for 3 mana, but that's a-okay. So now on turn 5 here, get the forest down. I think we'll pay these 4 for Jolrael, right? So we can animate this forest, right? Turn it into a 6/6, take an attack, draw a card, counter on the Ominous Seas. 4 lands, so nothing for that, but we could attack with Primo there as well. I'm just trying to get the board state set up right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's no way to get a land down here and get like AC down to keep drawing another card. I don't think there's anything else I should do before I play the land. Because right now I'm thinking, do I go for something like Bonnie Paul and take the turn off but get a bunch of value down? Or do I get something like Blossoming Tortoise down and start buffing my creatures, or get something like Wake of the Wilds down? I think the answer is to get something like Bonnie Paul or AC down, right? Get it down and started. We do have 5 lands, so at the end of the turn, we're going to make that 5/5 Primo. Again, no lands on tap, so nothing we can do with Jolrael, but I think it's still worth it because I think AC is going to be one of those engines that is just going to help us completely fill out this Ominous Seas. And remember, we get to play an extra land each turn, so we'll get the Roaring Earth down. Play the Forest, draw a card. Ominous Seas goes up another one. We'll put the counter on Zimone. Play the Flooded Grove, draw a card. Counter on Ominous Seas. We'll put a counter on Jolrael. Still got 5 mana. Again, a little bit too much for Bonnie Paul. A little bit too little for Bonnie Paul. We could get maybe like the Kazandu down just to set up again for next turn. Animate a land, draw a card, right? And now we've got a good amount of counters on Ominous Seas. So now it's set up. We're at 7, which means that now primo. We'll get to make another primo. Right now it's a 7/7, and I think we got a good board state going. Right, we're able to play a couple lands each turn. The lands are churning us out counters. We could make that 8/8. I think it would make most sense to make that 8/8 before our turn, right? So that 8/8 can attack, right, and start benefiting. We go 1, draw off AC, counter an AC, put a counter on Jolrael, right? Play another land, draw with AC. I still think I put the counters here, or maybe put a counter here, put a counter here. My goal is to try to like spread the love, make all my creatures big, right, to the point that they're all threats. We still haven't played a spell this turn. We've just got plenty of mana. Like, we could do something like Invasion of Zendikar, get a couple lands back in. We could do Bonnie Paul this turn. I think there's a lot of great options. I do the Avenger of Zendikar, give it to somebody. It's just too basics, right? Go get an island in a forest. 2 more counters on the Ominous, draw 2 more. Counter on AC, counter on Zemo. So that was just 4 mana. I've got 4, 5, 6, 7 left. Love the idea of something like Enduring Curiosity, right, to draw more cards, where we have no maximum hand size because of Reliquary Tower. So the land we animate is going to be huge. Play the Enduring Courage. I've got 3 mana left. I think I kind of want to sit it there. Go to combat, make one of these into a 7/7. We can take a bunch of attacks here. I think it makes sense to try to flip this Avenger of Zendikar, which I don't think we wouldn't at this point, depending on who's protecting it. Probably get a ton of damage in here, at least 1. We want that island to attack a player so that we can draw a card, but we don't necessarily have to draw the card. We could just do it to guarantee, but I still think we get probably at least 3 or 4 cards here. And we've got 3 mana left over. I mean, we could do like Beastmaster Ascension. I mean, at this point, the good part is even if somebody wipes the board, we've got so many lands left that we'd be easily be able to rebuild. And I think this is the top end. This is what you want to see from Jolrael, is just setting up a board where even if you wipe the board, we still got so much land and so much landfall pieces, we could still reestablish and let me know, what do you think of Jolrael down in the comment section below? I think the deck's really interesting. If you're looking for a lands deck that isn't just landfall.deck, I think this is fun. It gives good options, and it might have some fun for you to tinker and do something fun with your lands if you don't want to just do straight landfall. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below, and I will catch you guys next time.